So the thing we hear about most when you hear about a security problem in mobile, it's almost always an Android app that looks good, but does something bad in the background. We call it Trojan horse, like in the famous story. It was a nice gift, but there were some soldiers inside that gave him a problem. It's really boring. These things totally can't succeed unless people download them probably from a non-standard app store and install them possibly without paying attention to the permissions. I'm not deeply interested in those Trojans. It's all the same story. And do any of you want to talk about some mobile threat you've encountered that isn't the Trojan, something that is perhaps different? Who wants to leap forward?
Well, one of the things that we've been tracking and we're looking at is in-app advertising, both as deceptive advertising, but also as a mechanism for a vector for introducing Trojans and other forms of malware onto the device. And that you could be said from if you think about user behavior, it's not about the platform, it's not Android versus iOS, but it's very different, it's very untraditional. You don't see that in the PC world, it's very different. So, we're in the mobile space, we're more dependent on applications as opposed to going on the web.
So are those mobile ads for convincing people to download other applications, or what are they
tricking
people into doing?
So there's a couple of things. One, as deceptive advertising to get them to buy products that don't, right? And also we've seen those things as a mechanism for premium SMS roll up. In one instance, a couple months ago, actually 8 months ago, there was one where it would look like you say you missed a message, and then you click on that, and then it'll take you to a web page look just like a legitimate site, and behind the coloring of the site, there was actually the verbiage necessary for you to roll into premium SMS, and because people just didn't realize that they were actually enrolling for premium SMS by clicking on a button. We had, it's not a huge problem, but we saw that. So it's something that we've been tracking. So again, it wouldn't matter if it's an iOS or Android.
I just want to clarify. The premium SMS threat, that means you download an app that you think is going to do something good, and it does one of these things, send a text to this number and donate $10 or whatever, which apparently is much easier in other countries than in the US. But especially a problem in certain parts of Europe. Dan, did you have something to add about a particular threat that you would?
I mean, not really. A lot of what we see on mobile is very basic, and it kind of mimics a lot of how legitimate users of those devices use them. I mean, the best way to monetize your information if you're a legitimate developer for mobile is through a mobile application. We see a lot of people having difficulty monetizing mobile advertisements. Facebook is famously losing a lot of their revenue opportunity because more people from that platform are moving to mobile devices where they just can't make as much money off you on that. And malware developers have the exact same problem. So we see them monetizing things in tried and true methods via applications because they are easier to break into the phone and they're very easy to distribute. Everybody has access to an app store. Very few people browse the mobile web compared to people on desktops.
Yeah. An interesting trend that we're seeing at McAfee is a growth in ransomware on mobile devices, where you'll basically do a drive-by to a website, it'll drop a piece of malware, and it'll basically say, if you want to get access to your phone, you need to send this money. So very interesting use of we've seen ransomware on PCs since like the 60s, right? It's been around forever. Right? This just started happening in the last couple quarters where they're actually hijacking your mobile device and stopping you from doing anything until you pay the money.
Wow.
Yeah, we've seen a few interesting things. One we call a rogue mobile app, which may look like Bank of America, but it's actually not. So they may be charging you 99 cents basically to pass you through to our website. So we've seen some interesting things like that. Couple really interesting pieces of malware, but they kind of hijack the SMS. Where the malware basically takes control of the deliverability of that SMS, so it may suppress it to your phone, but then redirect it someplace else. So if you're trying to do something, I don't know, like a financial transaction that requires a one-time passcode that's being delivered to your phone, that SMS can be redirected someplace else. Another interesting one is more focused on voice. So think about you're calling a contact center. You turn over the back of your credit card. You dial the 800 number that's on the card. You call it. Well, there's malware out there that's identifying what numbers you're calling. And then when you dial that number, it activates the malware. And then it starts recording what you're saying. So, and it listens for 16-digit numbers or, well, that'd be 8-digit numbers. So either credit card numbers or Social Security numbers. So it's recording those and basically turn that into text and then sending the fraudster either a text message or some other sort of back office data transmission. Pretty cool.
Definitely more interesting than mere Trojans. I'd like to throw out a question to each panelist and go through that and then get a little more wild. But I got a really simple one for you, Gary.
Good. I like simple.
Simple
guy.
Why do we need to bother? What is so important about protecting your phone from this or that? It's in your pocket. Why are we worried about this?
Yeah, we get this. This is my Achilles heel, right? What most people don't understand is that phone, that tablet, is every bit as powerful and capable as their computer, right? And so their banking, their shopping, their social, everything they're doing on their Mac or their PC, they're doing on that phone. And in most cases, they're doing it virtually unprotected, right? So that's giving people with malicious intent a platform to really go get information. Because if you think about it, every one of those mobile devices has typically 4 antennas. You got GPS, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and cell, right? Every one of those is an access point. We showed you Wi-Fi, right? Really simple hack. All free tools, readily available online. So our biggest challenge is really educating consumers that they need to use the same care and precautions with their mobile devices that they do with their PCs that they've spent so many years just making sure are protected. So that's probably our #1 thing to address that question.
There was something else you had mentioned about the consequence of losing your phone.
Oh, yeah, I forgot all about, yeah. So we did this, it's called the Digital Asset Survey last year, where we did, it was a global survey. We talked to 3,000 consumers around the world because we understood 2 things really well. We saw a rapid adoption of mobile devices, so we live in a multi-device home. And we saw the amount of activity, malicious activity, targeting those devices. What we didn't know, and we did the research to find out, was what's the value of that data? What's the value of your digital stuff, right? So global survey, the number, I didn't know what to expect when we did it, but when I got the results, I was amazed. The number that they came back with was $37,000. So when people thought of their work product, their photos, their music libraries, all their stuff that they had on their devices, it was $37,000. That was worldwide, by the way. The North American number was $54,000. So when you think about the value of that data and how important it is to your existence and the way you interact with everybody on the planet, we were just amazed by that. We think, why wouldn't people use sensible precautions to safeguard those devices, realizing that that's their livelihood, right? And if you lose that, it's akin to having your car stolen or your house broken into. So we're pretty amazed by that number.
Wow. That's alarming. Keith, we were talking earlier, I mentioned that I'm a Bank of America customer, but I always do my online banking on the PC. And you said that it's actually safer on mobile. How can that possibly be?
Well, it's a few things. One, when our development teams start to look at how do you build a mobile app, the one thing that I always tell them is the first thing you need to think about is assume the customer is compromised. That's where you start your development work. So as we build our mobile applications, they are very self-contained, right? It is a little packet of code that gets sent to the customer. We have put multiple controls in place to ensure not only that that code can't be manipulated, can't be reverse engineered, the data transmission can't be compromised. where the data sits on the phone can't be compromised. We've been testing this for a very long time. And Dan kind of joked when I said we've got a group of ethical hackers. If you're a black hat, you don't call them ethical hackers, you just call them hackers. So we've got a bunch of guys that are out there testing that app to ensure that once it gets to your phone, that nothing can happen to it and nothing can happen to your data. And if you think about an online experience, as Gary put, it's been for a couple decades, the malware writers have been out there trying to perfect how to get malware onto a PC or how to get it onto a Mac. And for mobile, it's just been for a year, maybe two. We've just seen kind of I think actually you guys shared some of the data. Yeah. Late last year was really the kind of the first rise of mobile malware. So it's much more on the newest spectrum, and most of the malware we're seeing is pretty rudimentary.
I guess I'll switch to mobile banking. So, Renata, we're talking about putting this or that protection on the device, on every device in the room, and yet every device in the room is connecting through the network, be it 3G, 4G, or a Wi-Fi network. It's not quite the same as on the PC, where it's basically through the internet, which is uncontrolled. Right. Is it possible, is there any way to push the protection upstream so that we don't have to say, yeah, the malware can come right to my phone, and then I'll stop it right there?
Absolutely, yeah. And I spoke about the app that we put out on the device, but absolutely on the network layer is also a very key part. And then we look at it, we look at security in multiple layers, and the two places that we really put a lot of emphasis on, of course, is the device and the network. And on the network, we do a lot of things. We do, intrusion detection. We do DNS analysis. We do anomaly detection. And we also do a lot of network intelligence gathering. We participate in a lot of different organizations that supply us with information, McAfee being one, SourceFire, all these different feeds. And we take that information and we put controls in the network. So that if there are new malwares, and even though they are very rudimentary, and some of these can be very stealthy and very, very, very well thought out, they can't hide from the network, right? So they can't hide from the, they have to use TCP/IP, they have to use DNS, and all these protocols that we can analyze and look at, and we could do this control on the network layer. And that gives it an advantage because then it doesn't matter, and I know we're talking about mobile and we're talking about Android and iOS, but don't forget, on the network, people forget that on the wireless network today, it's not just about the mobile phones or the thing. It's also about, we also released a Home Fusion not too long ago, which is a product that goes in a person's house, and it is your broadband connection at your house using 4G technology. And we also have people, I have a friend of mine who his entire house, he has these 4G dongles and access points, and that's what he uses for his broadband in the home. We also have OnStar and a few other automobile companies that are putting devices in the car. So and of course the smart grids and all these other things. So being on the network layer is very important, especially like, for instance, in the mobile, in the banking world, we also have ATMs and all these other things that are as important as consumer products. So everyone benefits from that.
So do we even need anti-malware on our phones?
I think we do, because even though they're rudimentary, even though they're it's that gotcha moment, they're easy. It's when you're compromised and it's your data, then it becomes personal, right? So that's why we're giving it away for free. If you look at what we're doing, it's a scanning engine and a DNS analysis kind of, right? Which is what we do on the network, DNS analysis and network scanning. So it's very similar and they're complementary, I think. And as it was said before, it's like, you drive your car, you park your car, you don't leave your car unlocked, right?
Okay, that does make sense. So you're protected at both ends.